Over the years, Disney have created a number of original characters for their theme parks. Some fade quickly into obscurity, while others become icons of the parks. Think the orange bird, or my favourite, Figment. In fact, two of Disney's more obscure original characters were not designed for their theme parks, but actually found their homes in the water parks of Walt Disney World. Today, Blizzard Beach's Ice Gator and Typhoon Lagoon's Lagoona Gator feel almost forgotten, despite the fact they both still have a small presence within their respective parks. But during the 90s, these characters were hugely popular. So, without further ado, please allow me to reacquaint you with, or perhaps introduce you to, the Disney Water Park Gators. Typhoon Lagoon opened in 1989 as Walt Disney World's second water park. Compared to the first, River Country, Typhoon Lagoon was incredibly well themed, matching the same level of theming that fans had come to expect from their theme parks. The park's story revolved around a typhoon that wreaked havoc upon a formerly pristine tropical paradise, a theme which is very easy to gauge when in the park. This water park, which set a new standard for the industry, was so incredibly popular that Disney quickly decided that a second water park was needed to help meet the demand created by Typhoon Lagoon. Therefore, in 1995, Blizzard Beach opened, with an all-new, unique theme. When planning Blizzard Beach, the third water park to be built at Walt Disney World, Imagineers decided that the park should have a mascot, to help familiarise visitors with the park's wacky backstory. Unlike with Typhoon Lagoon, they decided that the storyline was a little too wild for guests to understand from the park's theming alone. Plus, as many fans will be quick to tell you, Blizzard Beach's theming isn't quite as detailed as Typhoon Lagoon's. The story of a freak snowstorm might have been simple enough, but how the ski resort built in response to this became a water park is a little more of a stretch to wrap your head around. Thus, Imagineers decided that creating a mascot to be an integral part of this story would help guests catch on quickly to the story of the park. Ice Gator was originally created by Imagineer Tim Kirk in a Ski Florida gag sketch related to coming up with the concept for the water park. Imagineer Jim Shull took the gator from this sketch and refined him into the friendly blue ice gator design we are now familiar with. The story goes that this Floridian alligator came to inhabit the hastily built ski resort of Blizzard Beach, which was built after a freak snowstorm hit Florida. When the resort began melting, the gator gleefully took up water skiing down Mount Gushmore and crashed through the roof of the nearby beach house. This event inspired the resort owners to transform Blizzard Beach into a sort of water park resort from the remains of the ski resort. With that, the water park was born and was ready, with Ice Gator front and center to welcome guests. In fact, Ice Gator was even on the cover of opening day park maps, and was a prominent presence in the park when it opened on April 1st, 1995. In addition to appearing on a wide selection of merchandise, the Ice Gator also appeared as a character in the park with his own meet and greet. Sadly, Ice Gator is no longer seen in the form of merchandise or meet and greets, but he does still have a fair share of presence within the park. He can still be seen in statues, pictures, and other theming all around the park. Although, sadly, even some of this theming has been removed recently. Blizzard Beach's Teeks Peak Kids area was once home to statues of Ice Gator playing with his gator nephews and nieces, but it is now home to young Anna and Elsa playing in the snow. The inclusion of IP here doesn't fit the overarching storyline of Blizzard Beach, and this surface-level theming is something we are beginning to see a lot with Disney. Unfortunately, change like this is becoming rather typical, with many original characters being replaced by film-based content that just isn't cohesive with the rest of the park. Back in the 1990s, when Blizzard Beach opened, Imagineers was so bothered with creating a cohesive story that they devised a brand new character for the park. Today, such thematic integrity is thrown to the wind in favour of movie references that make little to no sense. And I say all this as someone who is a huge fan of Frozen. Even though Typhoon Lagoon opened first on June 1st, 1989, 6 years prior to Blizzard Beach opening, Blizzard Beach was the first water park to feature a gator mascot. The Ice Gator's initial popularity is what prompted Disney to introduce a mascot to their other major water park, Typhoon Lagoon. This was to be Lagoona Gator. Typhoon Lagoon had opened with no mascot, and it's clear to see from the park's incredibly intricate theming that no mascot was really needed to convey the park's story to guests. Nevertheless, mascots are good for merchandise, which means they're good for sales. So, after the success of Ice Gator, Disney were pretty quick to decide that Typhoon Lagoon should receive its own counterpart in the form of Lagoona Gator. According to Lagoona Gator's backstory, the friendly, surf-loving alligator came to Typhoon Lagoon after the hurricane transformed the sleepy Placid Palms resort into a surfer's paradise. The gator loved it so much that he decided to live under the heavily damaged clock tower along the lagoon shores. Then, when tourists came to enjoy the resort, he held parties and took them surfing, leading to him being crowned as the park's mascot. Although Lagoona Gator remained prevalent throughout Typhoon Lagoon during the 1990s, as the new millennium approached, the character's popularity waned. Despite this, Lagoona Gator continued to feature on merchandise and even did the occasional meet and greet. However, Lagoona Gator was never quite as prolific as the Ice Gator, and today only remains in very few hidden places, where his likeness can be seen in a few pictures around the park. In the 2000s, Lilo and Stitch found Typhoon Lagoon to be a rather fitting home, and since then, Stitch sort of took over as the mascot of Typhoon Lagoon, although these days, he is also no longer quite so featured within the park. So perhaps there is room for Lagoona Gator to return once again. But as already mentioned, current trends show that Disney are highly unlikely to try and reintroduce Lagoona Gator anytime soon. A third gator was planned for Walt Disney World's very first water park, River Country, which had opened in 1976 and was themed to an old-fashioned swimming hole. Goofy was the perfect mascot for River Country and would often actually put on his swimsuit and fly down the park slides alongside guests, something which is pretty hard to imagine happening these days. He didn't have a huge presence within the park beyond this, but he was prominent on merchandise and even within the park's logo. But replacing him with a new mascot wouldn't have required much change. In fact, there were already little alligator statues in the park's kiddie cove. River Country's gator mascot was to be called Ranger Gator, and seems to appear like you'd expect a typical Florida gator to look. Sadly, as the park closed in 2001, he never came to fruition and not much is known about him. Out of all the gators, Ice Gator is by far the best known, but even he is constantly at risk of fading away. Following the tragic incident where a young boy was killed by an alligator on Walt Disney World property in 2016, Disney removed many references to alligators within the parks. From parade floats to character meet and greets, lots were taken away. Some have since come back, but I do think the impact of this awful accident makes it very unlikely that Disney will choose to focus on the water park gators again. Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon are both full of the typical Eisner-era excessive theming that was so prevalent at Disney parks during the 1990s. Visiting the water parks today is truly like stepping back in time, and personally, for nostalgia alone, I'd really love to see Ice Gator and Lagoona Gator take center stage at the water parks again, but I do understand why Disney might not feel that such a decision would be right. Thank you so much for watching. Do you have any fond memories of these gator characters? If so, we'd love to hear them. Let us know in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, check out my links in the description and some of my other videos.